can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders like the founders of P90X, Einstein Bagels, Atari, and many more, and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. Our sponsor today is Rise25.com, where entrepreneurs of 6, 7, and 8-figure businesses come together live and in person every few months to solve their biggest business challenges and leave with lifelong friendships. Check out Rise25.com. It's run by myself and co-founder John Corcoran, and it's application only. Today, I'm very excited. We have Jay Steinfeld. He's the founder of Blinds.com. He set up the original e-commerce site, NoBrainerBlinds, for $3,000 in 1996. And his first domain in 1993, and has since grown the e-commerce company to over $200 million in annual revenue. It's the world's top retailer for blinds and shades and provides blinds for over 1 million windows every year. And the company was acquired in 2014 by Home Depot. And one of the most impressive feats, Jay, in my mind, is you went one-on-one selling into people's homes for 14 years while helping raise 3 kids, sometimes working 7 days per week. Thanks for joining me.
It's great to be here. Thanks for asking me to be here.
So Jay, you have some great stories from the first office and then transitioning from the store. So paint a picture of the first office for people.
Well, the first office was my house. I started in a store in 1987, so I've been in the window covering business for almost 30 years.
Right.
My wife and I had a store. It was called Laura's Draperies, and my wife's name was Naomi.
Okay.
And she started it. I had just been fired from my job, so I needed something to do. I always wanted to be in business, and decided, hey, I'll run a drapery shop as well. So we both had stores. She would go to people's homes. I would go to people's homes. We'd be working 7 days a week, 6 days actually into people's homes. On the 7th day, we did all our paperwork, and we were raising kids at the same time.
That's a crazy schedule.
Well, it was crazy. I was making money. I was not developing any wealth. And as a result, if I didn't work, I made nothing.
Right.
As a lot of sole proprietors would do.
Yeah.
It was 1,001 square feet, the showroom. Well, in 1993, I had heard about the information superhighway and decided, well, Laura's Draperies could have a website.
Yeah.
This is the year before Amazon, so I didn't know you could sell anything online. Nobody was selling anything online,
right,
to my knowledge.
Right.
So we opened up the website in 1993, Lauras.com, and then Amazon's selling books. I said, well, if you can sell books, maybe you can sell blinds. So I gave it a shot. It was really no big deal. So for the Laura site cost $1,500. I said, I want to make buying blinds and shades a no-brainer. And we called it NoBrainerBlinds.
Right.
I was selling it basically out of the house, and we wanted that first office, as you mentioned. It was at 4815 Pine Street, which sounds like a house, which was a house. So I changed the address to One Brainer Tower. It was NoBrainerBlinds, One Brainer Tower, Bel Air, Texas, so that it sounded big.
Very fancy, Bel Air, Texas, yeah.
Yeah, very. Bel Air, it's not the Bel Air you're thinking about, suburb of Houston. And that's how it all started. So I was doing it. I still had the Laura's Draperies store, my day job, and at night was just occasionally taking a sale. People would call into the showroom of Laura's, and they'd say all of our customer representatives were busy. Right. And then they'd call me from my van driving around town, and I had this giant cell phone, this big brick cell phone, my order pads, my price books, and a calculator on the front seat of my van, and would call them back and would try to make a sale, and normally did, right from the front seat of my van.
Wow.
That's how it all started. We then had, I'd say maybe a legitimate office, which was in the back of an alley, right, which was behind my Laura showroom.
Okay.
The alley, as it's known, was Two Brainer Tower, so second location.
Right.
And there were literally rats, disgusting. It was smelly, stinky, and you had to walk through the alley to get to this 800 square foot office with no windows. And of course, the big decision for the 2 employees that I had at that time was, do I open the door and get all this fumes into our office, or do I keep it closed and be claustrophobic? And that was a constant battle they had every day. And then I had
claustrophobia. Yeah.
They went for claustrophobia
Yeah.
most of the time.
For sure.
That's how the offices started. Eventually, in 2001, I decided that I'm making as much money online as I am in my store, and I'm not working anywhere near as hard. And it was actually fun to be online. And then we sold the store and went full-time online in 2001.
So tell me a little about the landscape. You're an early adopter. You had one of those big brick cell phones. You were one of the, 1993, you had a website. What was the landscape like online at the time?
Certainly no broadband. 1,500 baud modems, so really slow. If you loaded a picture, you would see the picture at the top, and it would just inch down about a quarter of an inch. It would take about 2 to 3 minutes to see one photograph. AOL had just started. I remember big news, they had 500,000 subscribers. Prodigy was in CompuServe were pretty big, and people didn't even know what email was at the time.
Right.
At least I didn't. So that's where we were. No caller ID.
So Amazon, what other websites were around when you started the first e-commerce site in '96?
I think there was maybe Pro Flowers, I think may have existed at the time.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot. I remember on my site, because I had no money, just had the 3,000, and I needed to somehow figure out how I could get credibility. So I remember ripping some ads off other people's sites, like a FedEx and the Pro Flowers and some other ads, and banner ads, and put them on my site as if they were paying me to be on the site to get some credibility. I don't know, I'm not even sure they linked over to those sites.
It just was an image.
It was just an image.
Yeah.
And it was just a way to make it look like there was enough traffic to support somebody paying me to be on there.
Early on, I think I read you didn't even have really a shopping cart. How did people actually purchase stuff from the site?
Fill in the blank.
Fill in the blank.
Fill in the
whatever
blank.
you
all
want.
Text fields. It was text fields, and the columns didn't even add. You had to manually take a price matrix from the website and line up the width and the height in the matrix, the intersection of those two of the width and height.
Right.
Enter that in there, actually type in the name of the product, manually add it up, and then submit basically a text-filled form. And then I would take the information. I remember I would use a response to ads, to a sale that was not automatic. So what I would do is when I got home at night, I would see how many sales I had. And at the time, I'd have anywhere from 0 to maybe 4 sales.
Right.
And I would create all of my order confirmations. And I would write an email that said, Dear Henry, thanks for your purchase of doing a No-Brainer Blinds. And then would put their name in various strategic places to make it seem like it was this auto response.
Right.
And that was it. It was all manual. And eventually we did get a shopping cart.
Isn't it amazing that people they'd actually make purchases from that? I mean, they'd had to manually put it in and add it up.
It was amazing, and nobody actually believed it. I didn't believe it. And people said I was an idiot for even trying it, because no one's going to measure their own blinds, install their own blinds, and then actually have to enter all this cockamamie information into the website.
What made you decide to go against everyone else, and what made you so confident that this was where you needed to be at the time?
I had no confidence at all.
Oh, you didn't?
No. I had no vision as to what this could become. All it was a little marketing experiment. I had a website. I knew that I couldn't compete with Home Depot and Lowe's and some of the mail order companies from my high-touch store. So I thought, instead of being mail order, which was pretty prevalent at the time. I couldn't do a catalog and spend that money. I had no money, no ad budget, as I said. So I figured for $3,000 I can create a website, and that's what I did. It was purely a way to get some incremental dollars and to have a little fun while I was doing it.
Yeah.
And it just, one step at a time, one sale at a time, started building. It wasn't like I was thinking I'm going to flip this. I didn't even know what that meant. It wasn't like I was going to eventually sell it. It was a marketing initiative.
Right.
That was it.
It's amazing, Jay. So when you got fired, you were working at Meineke? It wasn't. Was it you got fired, or they bought the company and they just let you go? Because you seem like a conscientious person. Like they wouldn't just fire someone like you. So
I was related to the owner.
okay.
So when they purchased from this owner, they said, we got to get rid of any baggage. And I was considered baggage.
Your baggage.
Yeah, I was baggage. The funny part about it is I was a CPA at the time.
Right.
I got a BBA in accounting. And so I was VP of finance. So this is of the franchise. We weren't in the muffler business. We were in the franchise business. So this company from England bought us. I'm doing the due diligence for the company to provide this information.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the org chart post-acquisition, and I wasn't on it. So that was kind of a sign before it even went through that I was in trouble.
Yeah.
So that was disturbing.
I mean, in growing up, it always seemed like you wanted to be an entrepreneur. When you were growing up, what did you want to be? Did you have an idea?
Well, I knew in high school that I wanted to own my own business.
Okay.
I had businesses,
Yeah.
custom T-shirts. I paid my way through college by selling T-shirts and also going door to door painting numbers on street curbs.
Really?
I did that 2 or 3 summers and had enough money each summer to pay for college. It was hot.
I didn't know there was a market for that.
Yeah, it's not a big market, but it was enough money. At the time, college wasn't that expensive, maybe $2,000, and I'd made about $2,000. And it wasn't like, I didn't really feel like I was an entrepreneur at the time. I didn't have a lot of money. I needed money, so I had to get money.
Right.
And that was a much better way than stealing. Yes. So I did what I had to do to get to school.
Yeah.
That was really, it wasn't like I felt like I was doing any great feat. I just found a need and did it.
It filled it, yeah.
Kind of like what I'm doing now.
Right. What's interesting is looking at your background, you went, did KPMG, and your mentors told you, if you're going to go into business, you should go into accounting, right?
Correct.
Going back, would you have gone the same path? Do you agree with that advice that you got at the time?
Yes.
You do?
Well, here, I'm going to answer that first directly.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was great.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to answer it in a way, maybe it's more of an existential kind of answer,
Okay.
or a philosophical answer.
Yeah.
Right? I am blessed. I am very grateful for where I am in my life.
Yeah.
As a person, certainly in my business career. How can I question any decision that I've ever made?
Yes.
And anything that I may have changed, any variable that may have changed, had to have changed something else,
Sure.
and would mean that it is very likely that I would not be in the position that I'm in.
Yeah.
So, from a philosophical perspective, I question no decision that I've ever made.
Right. You can't, because that led you to where you are.
Right.
Yeah. So let me ask you a different one. Let's say your daughter, son-in-law, whoever said, okay, they're in high school, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to go into business. What would you tell them to do now?
I would tell them to do what I did.
You would.
I do think it's important to understand financial, not just financial statements, but understanding numbers so you can talk to people. Because if you're going to be talking to investors and banks and wherever you're going to be using money and just learning how to run the business, if you don't understand a financial statement, accruals, prepaids, just some of the basic stuff, you're pretty much in trouble. You may know how to sell blinds, but selling blinds and running a business that sells blinds is 2 different things.
Yeah. And I want you to talk a little bit. I want to talk about blinds.com, obviously, but huge learning when you were at Meineke, and I think it grew from 35 franchises to over 900 locations when you were there. So I was wondering some of the big lessons you learned, and you worked a lot on the targeted marketing programs, right?
That was something I did towards the end when I was getting kind of bored.
Okay. So, yeah, so what are some of the lessons?
The main thing I learned
Yeah.
is that if you have a recipe that works,
Yeah.
then you need to consistently apply it until you figure out that there's maybe even a better way to do it. But don't mess around when you know that something works.
Right.
So if you've got a system on how to sell blinds, follow it rigorously.
Yeah.
Perfect that system and follow it every single time. You may deviate a little bit, but get back to that path that you know works.
Yeah.
So we were able to put people who had no business acumen really, or business experience, and no muffler shop experience at all. These people just wanted to be in business, and they had the money, and we
Yeah.
taught them how to do this. And then it showed me how to leverage information and leverage that kind of experience. So we built, again, from those 35 muffler shops to 900 by just following a recipe.
Yeah.
And so now, as I think about building an organization, I think what is the best practices that each of my associates should follow, and if I can create that, it's my responsibility to provide the right tools, the right processes, give them the right resources, and be able to instruct them, coach them to follow that best practice.
Yeah.
And if they do, they'll be successful. If they're not successful, it likely is because I hired the wrong person. Because if I've got the right system, I have to take responsibility. Now, there will be people who will not follow a recipe.
Right.
There will be people who have personal reasons and somehow they were on the right path and they go off that and you have
Yeah.
to make changes. But generally, that's my responsibility to create that and follow it.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned with franchising is replicating successful best practices.
Yeah. So Jay, while there is a recipe, you are very open to employee feedback. And
Yes.
I want you to talk about the call center, because you took a lot of feedback from the call center, right? Because they were on the front lines. What's some of the good feedback you got from the call center?
Well, first, not only am I open to feedback,
Yeah.
we encourage it.
Right.
We have 4 core values. I'll only talk about one right now.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I have it later on to talk about the core values, because I know, I want to know why they came about and what they are, because that's a big
Okay.
way of the way you lead. Yeah.
Well, let me answer first that question
Go ahead.
directly, then I'll go back to
Yeah.
the kind of the genesis of the core values. One of them is to be yourself and speak up.
Yeah.
We don't want people to say what they think I want to hear, because if they do that, I learn nothing.
Right.
And if I really want to get better, I need as much data as possible. And the people who are talking to customers usually have more data than people who think they know what customers want. So not only am I getting their input for buy-in, I'm getting their input so I can make better decisions.
Right.
And the more that I can provide that type of autonomy for my associates, the happier they will be, because they have now direct control over their own destiny.
Right.
Because they've got a meaningful say
Yeah.
in the future. So the core values, we only have 4 core values. That's number 3.
Yeah.
Number 1 is to improve continuously. That's when I started the business, it was to improve my marketing. It was just an experiment.
Right.
And the second is to experiment without fear of failure. Although I will say I hate risk. I'm risk averse, highly risk averse. I don't gamble. I hate to gamble. I was in Monte Carlo, never bet. I go to Las Vegas. I will not gamble. I just can't do. I can't put money on something where I know the odds are against me.
So how do you do that one? That one's a tough one for you?
Okay, so the way you experiment without fear of failure is by knowing that the risk of it not working is so small that it has almost no effect on you.
Right.
So I don't take big, big risks. I take a lot of risks, furious experimentation.
Right.
We try to measure the rate at which we experiment and try things.
Yeah.
We even have 2 giant test tubes here. They're like 5-foot tall test tubes that have marbles in it. One of the test tubes has marbles for the experiments that we did that did, quote, not work.
Wow, I love that.
And there's tons of those in there.
Yeah.
And then there's another one that has experiments that did work, and there aren't that many in there. But we conspicuously show both test tubes filled with marbles because we are passionate about illustrating our propensity to and insistence on experimentation.
I love that. Before you do the next one, what's an experiment that you thought weren't sure it was working, or the company, and it worked really well? And what was one that didn't work, to give people an idea of what you tested?
Well, one experiment was that started off not working that well, but ended up being great, and this is at the time when a lot of people did not give very good satisfaction guarantees. Ours was good, but it wasn't like, for any reason, we'll give you your money
It wasn't
back.
a wow type of...
It wasn't a wow. It was a solid guarantee.
Right.
But then we said, even if you mismeasure for any reason, we will refund you and we'll give you your a new blind. That made a huge difference. That increased average order value. That increased lift.
It's a big.
Rate,
It seems like a big risk, right?
It would seem like a big risk to us, but we tested it with different types of language on just a few products. We didn't do the whole site and publicize it.
Right.
We just tested it on a few.
Yeah.
And like a good direct marketer would do.
Right.
And we tried it and then continued and leveraged that.
Yeah.
Oh God, there's so many things that.
What's
didn't work.
one you're like, oh, this is a sure thing. This is gonna work, and it bombed. It just didn't work at all.
I can't think of anything offhand. This is a sure thing because we never think anything we do is a sure thing. But I remember we tried this. In retrospect, it was a pretty stupid idea, but we did it. We advertised on coat hangers, where there were ads inside the coat hangers that dry cleaners would just give away.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, we did that. That was complete bomb.
Okay.
I'm not sure we had one sale from it, and we spent a lot of money on it. That was a pretty dumb idea, but we were willing to try it.
Hey, if it sits on people's shelves for a long time, who knows? But you tried it. Doesn't work. So improve continuously, experiment without fear of failure, be yourself and speak up. And the fourth one,
have fun. Just enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride.
That's it. I have a lot of fun at work. My wife says when Jay goes to work, he's off to his playground. And that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah. Talk about enjoying the ride when you're doing the 7 days a week with the kids. Like, looking back on that's like, now I would think it's maybe easier compared to the days when you were having to go into customers' homes every day. You had 3 kids, balancing that. Yeah. Talk about that part of things and what was going through your mind with that.
That wasn't fun.
Right.
That was not enjoyable.
Right.
That was survival.
Right.
Now we're building something of consequence. We're transforming the way people buy product. And that is fun.
Yeah.
So when you're actually improving and helping everybody around you improve, and you're experimenting like an inventor, and things work and some don't work, and you're measuring all that, and sometimes you succeed and sometimes you don't, but you're learning from every encounter that you have.
Yeah.
That is how we have fun.
Right.
And then besides that, we've got all the ping pong tables and the foosball and crazy stuff around the office. Really crazy. It looks like a
game room or something. Yeah. I asked that because someone listening may be at that point, right? They may be just working 7 days a week. How did you maybe have multiple kids? How did you stay sane and juggle all that at the time?
Well, I'm not sure I was sane at the time.
You were insane, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a time when the third child was born, my wife actually quit, and she started staying at home. Unfortunately, right after that, when I started the business, and this is sad, she passed away.
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry.
And that was in
that's horrible.
2002, the year after I started going full-time online.
Oh, my God.
So that was pretty horrible.
That's the worst
And
thing.
I had to really figure out what was important to me, what my core values are, what was happiness. And unfortunately, it took that for me to become more introspective and philosophical about what life is and how I even define my success. And that's how I got through that. And that's how I figured out that the core values are important. It's not just something that's the soft stuff that you talk about. And it actually does drive you. And if you know that you're on the path of what is important to you, it will be fun.
Yeah.
Because you're doing things that are important and that you feel like you're transformative in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you have a group, a team that's helping you do that, that's powering you to do things that you couldn't do on your own. That's enormously fun.
Yeah.
Teamwork is much more fun than doing it on your own.
Yeah. James.
So I think about the 7 days. That was not fun.
Yeah.
When my wife was sick and she ultimately passed away, that sucked.
That's horrible. Yeah.
And now, I'm blessed, and still obviously very sad about what happened in 2000.
Yeah. So sorry to hear that. It's devastating, and that overpowers anything that could be going on for any, like, really gives perspective on anything that could be going on business-wise or anything for people.
Yeah, it does create perspective. So if I've got a lot of emotional intelligence, and people say I do, it's that some of it derives from that because what is losing money or not making a sale
Right.
compared to losing your wife that
Right.
you've been married to for 26 years.
Yeah. At that point, do you decide? Were you making was there a decision to be made whether you sell the business and go, maybe take a job so you can be with the kid? I mean, I can't even imagine having to handle all that. Was there a decision, or there was no decision? It was like just forge ahead.
I've never been asked that question, and in retrospect, it never even occurred to me that I would not continue doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
We were developing momentum. And because things were out of control, this was something that I could control. Even though it was early in the formative years, because I was in charge, I can't imagine that I would give up control
I see.
and allow my life to be battered around any more than it had already been. So
You just grab the reins. You're like, I have control of this, and I'm going to take control of it.
yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And it was my 3 children who are now, the youngest is 26 and 30 and 33. One 33-year-old daughter has 2 children. One is named Naomi. And my son is, they're due in a few months.
Congratulations.
First grandson.
Wow.
So,
A lot of gratefulness. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in essence, what that did was that if I had this perspective of making myself better and making my associates and my team better, I realized that my definition of success was actually being in the process of getting better and making people around me get better.
Yeah.
And that's actually the purpose of our company. The stated purpose of Blinds.com is to help people become better than what they ever believed possible.
Yeah.
And it stems with the support of those 4 core values.
Yeah.
So when you've got people who are trying to help each other get better, who are looking to make sure they get better, you have an organization that aspires to be better and to be transformative and to support others. And when people feel like you really are supporting them, and that they trust you, that you really care about that, because they know that is not just a goal, it's what drives you.
Yeah.
It's really a core value. It's way easier to lead and to get people to do what you'd like them to do, because you're asking for their input, you're saying you want them to be better. What could be more supportive than that?
I love the visual of the test tubes. How did you think of that?
I don't know.
That's great. Because it really, I can visualize, and it tells people they can make mistakes and fail, and it's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we have our marketing department set up like a laboratory.
Yeah.
It has this. It's got pictures of inventors, and it's got a marketing periodic table that is pretty fun that we created. There's white coats, test tubes, and things. So it was just natural to create giant test tubes.
Right.
And do that. We're expanding to another floor, and on this next floor, we're going to make the test tubes even bigger and make it more conspicuous. Take it out of the marketing department and put it where everybody can see it.
Yeah.
Because it's so core to any business to experiment
Yeah.
relentlessly and not be afraid of trying something else.
Yeah. Talk about, so you get fired, you go in and you and your wife have a couple stores, then you consolidate to just e-commerce. So at that point, how many staff are there, and what does the company look like at that point?
Well, I had the two in the alley.
Right.
My wife was home,
Yeah.
and she was already sick at that time.
Right.
Cancer. So she's at home. We've got our 3 children at home. The youngest at the time was 10. And we then had 2 employees in the alley.
Yeah.
And then when we went to 3 Brainer Tower,
Okay.
which was really a real office above a trophy
No
shop.
rat.
No rats
Okay.
at all. We hired 7 people.
What were they doing?
They were on the phones.
Okay.
That's all they did. But again, we weren't spending any money on advertising. It was just people to answer the phone.
Right.
And that was one of my big fears, is that I'm an expert at blinds and selling blinds and understanding what customers need.
Right.
How was I going to impart that information and share that with all these other people?
Yeah.
And I had no idea how to hire at the time. I had no idea about structured training or anything. But I was lucky because I was a first mover and no one else was in the space. So there was no pressure to do something fast or to spend money.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was naive enough to believe I could do anything.
Right.
And therefore, I tried everything.
Right.
Because there were no really bad habits yet or limitations on what I believed was possible, because nobody was doing it. And that actually was an advantage. My naivety gave me the advantage of not being constrained by knowledge and wisdom.
Right. How did you train them, though? Because you did come from the systems franchise model. How did you end up training those people?
You'd think I would have taken some of that and done that well. I would teach them about blinds, and then I did probably the worst thing I could probably do, and that was coach them while they were on the phone. And they were so annoyed with me. I was horrible. I'd hear them say something. I'd say, put them on hold. And then it would tell them, no, you need to say it this way. So I was training on the job while they were on the phone. And there's a couple, the original 2 people from the alley still work for me.
Really?
Sharon and Ann.
Are you serious?
They're still here.
Wow.
And they'll tell people that I've completely transformed. I'm so much more enlightened now than when I was. I was pretty much an asshole at the time and had no clue as to what to do. They were in tears at times when they were on the phone, and now not at all.
I think, Jay, the new training should be you get back that office in the alley, and anyone you hire has to go in there. If those people lasted this long, you need to put them in there for like a year in that alley answering phones.
It's like
and
a
then,
boot camp.
Right,
Yeah.
and then they could graduate to the...
Well, funny enough, when we hire people on the first day of training, we take them to the alley.
You do? Okay.
We actually do take them to the alley.
Awesome, yeah.
We don't have class in the alley, but we show them where my house used to be, where the garage was.
Yeah.
We take them to the first office, which is actually 3 Brainer Tower, the legitimate office.
Right.
And we take them inside the alley and talk about the history so that they have some idea that this company, now a part of Home Depot, doing hundreds of millions of dollars, wasn't always like that. We want somebody to have some of that.
It grounds them a bit.
Yeah, we want them to feel so that they're not arrogant and they think this is just how it always was.
Right. Yeah.
We built this.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
So, but that training obviously worked. Even though you're stopping them, putting them on hold, say this, that worked at the time, right?
It worked at the time,
Right.
but it wasn't a whole lot of money. If we did $5,000 a week, that was pretty good. And then I think that year, I don't know, we did probably $1.5 million our first year, and then I made an acquisition from a company who is now doing $3 million, who leapfrogged us in St. Augustine, Florida, and that was actually how we started in 2001 with our $1.5 million, their $3 million, so we're doing $4.5 million.
Yeah.
So
That's
I had
a big jump.
virtually no inventory. I had no inventory. I had virtually no overhead, no advertising. So it was all pretty much incremental profit.
You mean they would drop ship? The companies would drop ship?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We still do that.
Yeah.
Most companies in the blinds business don't make their product. They have
Yeah.
the big manufacturers make it and drop ship it
Right.
to the customer. So we had no receivables. So I didn't have to worry about collection.
Right.
People would pay in advance. We'd make it.
Yeah.
It would take about a few days to 2 weeks for them to make it, drop ship it to the customer, get 30 days payment. So you get cash up front,
Right.
and then about 45 days later you pay the bill.
Right.
That's a good model.
Yeah, a
And
great
for somebody who's trying to keep things as much a no-brainer as possible, I didn't have to be that smart. I just had to show up, really, and take a couple of steps and then see what happened and take a couple more steps.
Well, I think you're being modest on that, but
That's really how I feel. I don't think it's false modesty. I know over time I've probably gotten a little smarter about it, but I really think that the success is just being willing to take some steps
Yeah.
and being super attentive to what you're doing
Yeah.
and adjusting
Yeah.
and not being arrogant to feel like everything you do you think is right.
Yeah.
In fact, you do what you believe is right with the idea that it is most likely going to be wrong.
Yeah.
And looking and taking in all the input you can to make it better.
Yeah.
That's in a nutshell, experimenting without fear, improving continuously, listening, and that was fun for me.
Yeah. So here's where I'm going to disagree with them, and I think you're being modest, because when you sell for 14 years, I mean, one of the ways when I was doing the research, some of the things on your website come directly from your experience of grinding out 14 years selling. For instance, you have a feature on there that's a tab says purpose, right? You probably wouldn't have discovered that, I'm assuming, if you hadn't for 14 years been selling. So talk about some of the decisions on why your website looks the way it does.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
When people are buying a blind, it's actually a pretty logical decision. It's not like they're buying draperies, which are fairly illogical. They're
Like for look, like, yeah.
for
right.
aesthetics. I mean, it's pure for look and aesthetics. When
Right.
you buy a blind, you're buying it for privacy, or you're buying it for light control.
Yes.
Maybe some aesthetics, insulation, durability,
Right.
and things like that.
Yeah.
So if you understand what the needs are
Right.
and what they're trying to achieve,
Yeah.
it's much easier to narrow it down.
Yeah.
So if a person says, I need it to be dark, I'm a fireman, I sleep during the day, and you need it to be pitch dark. So
Hence,
that's
on
right.
purpose, darken a room is a choice.
Dark in a room, exactly. If you're looking to reduce glare for your TV, here are the products that do that.
Yeah. And you discovered that only because you knew the customers and what they wanted.
You really don't sell by giving features, but by knowing what the benefit is. I mean, all good salespeople know that.
Yes.
So all I'm doing is saying, here's the benefit of this product.
Yeah.
And therefore, is this product aligned with what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And we've developed something called the Blind Finder, which is a design assistant, where you answer 4 or 5 questions.
Yeah.
At the end of the process, voila, here is the product or two that would be best for you.
Yeah.
Like, how important is light control to you? How important is this, all the things that I just mentioned before?
Right.
And by answering those questions, you can distill it down to the right, to the best
Right.
products.
Right. I think that gets lost when people, That's such a good point. You want to sell the benefits, not the features, because oftentimes we just immediately jump to the features and we don't worry or sell the benefits, which is what people care about.
People don't buy features, they buy benefits.
Yeah.
What will this do for you? And that's what they want to know.
Yeah. And so, Jay, at the time, that acquisition is a huge decision, right? I mean, that's not just like, oh, I'm going to acquire this company. What makes you at that time decide it's time for me to make a big move?
Well, this was 2001.
Yeah.
While I was, my wife's still alive. I'm still have the store, going all around town like a crazy guy.
Right.
And the way it actually worked was Joe from St. Augustine sent an email out to a bunch of people, including Home Depot, I might add. I still have a copy of that email.
Okay.
And said, hey, I'm just looking to sell my business. Anybody interested? And I'm going to sell like to the first bidder. Well, I actually did take the step and flew out to St. Augustine.
Wow.
He was doing his business out of his house with his family.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm going to do this full time. And that's when I decided to sell the business and go full time online.
Yeah.
So really, when I went full time online, I was automatically doing $4.5 million instead of the $1.5 million that I was doing by myself.
Yeah.
It seemed like a pretty easy decision. The
Really?
amount that he was asking for was doable.
Yeah. How do you finance that? I mean, unless you have cash sitting in a briefcase somewhere.
I did not have.
Okay.
I did have friends and family help me with some of it, and he financed his payables.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we did it. So some seller financing that we paid off
Yeah.
over like 90 days. Had those investors, and so I've had investors ever since day one.
Yeah.
So I've had to be attentive to that. And in the back of my mind, I probably knew that one day I'd be selling the company because that's probably what they wanted. Although they really didn't. What they wanted was just cash.
Yeah.
They wanted money, and what they did was they wanted me to basically drain the company all the time and distribute every month.
Make distributions.
Yeah, every month. And I wanted to take the money and put it back into the company to
Right.
build something of significance.
Right.
So we agreed that we would keep a third of the money for taxes, a third of the money we would distribute, and a third of the money we would keep in the business.
Yeah.
And eventually we grew. Now that's a slow way to grow, and it's a safe way to grow. But there wasn't a whole lot of outside pressure from competition, so that's what we did.
Was that
It worked.
was that a tough sell to get those investors on board? I mean, what's that conversation like? Because this is family and friends, right? And the potential
It was
is you
mostly
could
friends.
Okay. Like, we
there was
keep them
one
out of
guy-
Thanksgiving table. Yeah.
It's there was one person who had a pretty good inkling as to what the internet was going to be like.
Okay.
He drove a lot of that.
I see.
He found somebody else. I also had a supplier who was already supplying me, and they put up the bulk
That
of
makes
the-
sense. Yeah.
It was a strategic investment.
Yeah. That's smart.
They even gave me a computer, so I didn't have to buy it. He said, "Yeah, here, just take one of our computers."
Yeah.
So that was about a $2,000 computer, and so I had the computer, had a table, and some chairs, and 2 employees. So that's how it worked.
So is the next major milestone purchasing blinds.com in 2004?
But with that St. Augustine company,
Yeah.
they had a license for the name Blinds.com.
Oh, they did?
Yes.
Oh.
And the guy who owned it, a guy in New Jersey, never launched a website called Blinds.com. So the company from St. Augustine, which was called Blinds Wholesale, had all of the type-in traffic for Blinds.com redirect to Blinds Wholesale. We were paying some really small amount for a lot of traffic, and we were able to convert it. The person who owned it, this was like free money for him. It was great. It was a great deal for him. It was a great deal for us. Eventually, I contacted the guy and said, why don't I just pay you a lot of money and not do this once a month royalty?
Right.
And we came to terms and bought Blinds.com because I wasn't going to launch Blinds.com on what I considered a land lease.
I didn't
own the property, but I was starting a business
He
on
could
it.
yank it out from under you.
Yeah, you never knew. So it wasn't this lifetime perpetual license.
Yeah.
So we ended up buying it, and that's when we started No-Brainer. Well, NoBrainerBlinds was 1996, and it wasn't until 2004,
Right.
8 years later, that Blinds.com launched.
Was that a hard negotiation to actually get that? Because he's seeing a residual income every month. So.
But he's waiting years to get the money that he ended up getting.
Right.
And what was great about it is there was this other company much further along in the mail order business that also wanted it. And it would pay a lot more than we were willing to pay. He wouldn't sell it to this other guy because he was such a jerk, and he was just known in the industry as a jerk, and he didn't want him to have it.
Right.
He says, I will not allow that guy to have this website.
Right.
And he says, I like you guys, I'm going to let you buy it.
Wow.
And if that hadn't happened, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now, that's for sure.
I don't know about that, but so that's big. What was the next major milestone in? So you make the acquisition. You have now owned Blinds.com.
But we also made another acquisition in 2005 of another competitor, and that helped. When I made that acquisition, we were at that time doing about 15 million. They were doing 18 million, so we're up to 33 million.
Yeah.
And that gave me the critical mass to begin hiring really good managerial, like C-level people.
Yeah.
When I hired my first chief marketing officer, and I got a COO at the time. So that was a really important, that was a turning point for us.
Yeah.
Because there was enough business and profit to afford the kinds of people who could do things that I didn't know how to do and could do it a lot better than I could.
Yeah.
And do it full time.
What did the organization look like? Because you're taking in all these companies and kind of mushing them together. How do you decide who to keep? Do you leave them
Pushing is a little too pejorative. We were like Procter and Gamble,
Okay.
smaller. We had like all these different soap brands
Yeah.
on the
You
shelf.
keep them kind of
basically, we
separately.
had multiple websites,
Yeah.
all existing, all with shelf space in the search engines, and they were all different products, different pricing,
Gotcha.
different look and feel, different marketing segments.
Yeah.
Although I will say that loosely about marketing segments, they were basically just existed, and it wasn't like it was a predetermined market segment that we
Right.
were trying to appeal to,
Right.
but they did because they looked differently.
Yeah.
And the people in our contact center, which we called the customer engagement center,
Right.
because we don't transact with customers, we engage with our customers. We
Yeah.
call it CEC, the customer engagement center.
Yeah.
So in the CEC, they'll answer the phone from all the different websites.
Mm-hmm. So you have a centralized call center that you use?
Yes,
Okay.
right outside my
Okay.
office. Yeah, that is a core capability that we have
Yeah.
that we do not want to or will not outsource.
Yeah.
We have real experts on the phone who now have a legitimate training program
Yeah.
so that they can ask the right questions,
Right.
figure out what the needs are,
Right.
and provide. One of the ways they get compensated is by our quality control department,
Yeah.
which listens to calls and ensures that the product that they're recommending was derived by asking the right questions
Right.
to understand what the needs were,
Yeah.
and then matching up the product that matches their needs.
Yeah.
And if they don't do that, they get dinged.
Right.
Because we want to make sure they're not pushing the wrong
Yeah.
product.
You
We
want the
people to
customer
really
happiness.
get
Yeah.
the right solution.
Yeah. You want the customer happiness first. So going from your training of pausing them on hold, telling them what to say, now what's the training process look like for the call center?
Now it's pretty rigorous. We have 2-week classroom. We have then they go from there. Once they graduate at their pace, they go into what we call Academy Bay. Academy Bay is where they have coaches right by them, where they start taking a few calls
Yeah.
a day, and each call is monitored and graded
Yeah.
and assessed. And then over time, they get more and more calls, and then they go back into training.
Yeah.
And from there, they graduate usually in about 2 to 3 months before they're really able to go on the floor
Yeah.
in the CEC on their own And then even after that happens, we have a skill development department, and that department, their whole job is to listen to calls, grade those calls, and coach people so that they can do the things that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So it never ends. The training, the coaching, the skill development never ends.
Yeah. They get a master's in call center. I feel sorry for your competition, honestly, with that program.
It's pretty amazing when you hear our people on the phone
Yeah.
and you listen to competitors on the phone. There's night and day, and people end up saying, "Wow, that was surprisingly easy," and I
Yeah.
was actually treated with courtesy and respect, and they were listening to me, and they asked good follow-up questions.
Imagine that.
That's
right?
what we teach.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why Home Depot bought us, not just because we
Yeah.
were killing it in blinds,
Yeah.
but we have these systems and we have this culture that they believe that we could then potentially integrate into the whole Home Depot system.
Yeah. I mean, and Jay, customer experience is huge for you. And I remember reading somewhere, you always are thinking of how do you produce a wow for the customers. So what are
Yes.
some things that, I mean, obviously the call center is huge. What are things you implement that creates a wow?
The CEC, the Customer Engagement Center,
Yeah.
these days, most contact centers are so poor that you don't even have to be that good to get a wow. Like, wow, you actually did call me back. I wasn't expecting that. Or, wait a minute, you called me by the right name. You understood me, and when you didn't, you asked for clarification. Little things like that. It's just courtesy and respect
Right.
and being attentive.
Yeah.
It's just
That's sort of
you
sad
don't-
that that's a wow
it
experience.
is
right?
sad.
Yeah.
We're really not that great. We're just so much better than a lot of other people.
Yeah. You
And when
pay attention to the details.
Yes.
Yeah.
You pay attention to what the customer really needs.
Yeah.
And you just do it with intent.
Yeah.
Now not everybody does it, and we don't always live up to our goals. And then we work harder to make those people better. And if that doesn't happen, then you have to make a change.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about marketing. That's really, I mean, you helped a lot with Meineke and the marketing. So I want you to set the stage in, I think, videos. I want to talk about all the marketing because you did radio, TV, but the videos in '97, you filmed something in your bathroom?
Yes. Back in the day, I was doing social media and I was using videos and reciprocal links, all that stuff. I thought it would make it much easier for people to understand how to install a blind if they saw a video of it.
Makes sense.
So we're
yeah.
using QuickTime. I mean, that's pretty logical.
Yeah.
And we have hundreds of videos that we now produce in our own studio.
Yeah.
But at the time, I had a videographer who filmed me as the installer in my bathroom installing a blind. The videos, they're pretty hilarious.
Are
They're
they out there? Are they out there?
Yeah.
Are they on your site?
I'll send you those
I
links.
want to.
They're not
I
on the
want to put
site.
one of those on there. Yeah.
Okay, I'll show you what they're like. They're about 15 seconds.
Okay.
And the instructions are, your blind comes with all of the brackets and instructions. Take it out of the box, put the brackets up, snap in the blind. It's a no-brainer. That was the whole video.
Right.
But you could actually tell how to do it from that, and you'll when you see it, that will be me in the background pulling up the shade, and the announcer was the videographer. So he edited it, he shot it, and was the announcer of these videos. I think I've got 3 that I can find.
That's great. Are they on YouTube or on your site? Or
They're nowhere.
Oh, they're nowhere.
I just have them in my own
okay.
library.
I
But
want to
I'll-
see them. Yeah.
I'll send them to you.
Bob Vila style videos or something.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But
it was important to do that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's ahead of its time too. I mean, '97. Who's shooting videos?
Right.
I mean,
And we had referrals, we had ratings, we had social media where people would go on to bulletin boards, or what they were called, and I would have in my signature, NoBrainerBlinds, CEO,
right.
and people would ask a question about blinds, and I would answer it.
Yeah, like forums and bulletin boards.
Yeah, there were forums.
Yeah.
but they were really called like alt.consumers or something like
It's
that.
early social media.
Really, yeah.
Yeah.
Deja News is what I used, I think, to ferret out those different bulletin boards and forums.
Yeah.
That was how I did the advertising. And I would go into one of those, and I probably found 2 or 3 that had actually a decent number of questions, which would mean 3 a day or something like that,
Right.
and answer those. And I would be scouring and try to get in there before anybody else could do that.
Right.
That's how I advertise.
Yeah.
That's really social media.
Yeah. So I know like the majority of the customers come from people who are happy rebuying or referring other people. What about from the marketing side? You'd SEO. You did a lot of SEO early on because I read like you had one of the top SEO people ever, Danny
He's the top
Sullivan.
guy.
Right.
His name is Danny
How
Sullivan.
did you even meet him? I mean,
Search engine watch. Danny Sullivan. He's like the guru of
Right.
search engine. He actually did my search engine marketing. He actually personally did it.
Right.
How did I find out about him?
is he local in Dallas?
No, he actually lives in England.
Oh.
I think he probably still lives in England. At the time
He
had
did
no-
good SEO. That's probably how you found him.
Probably so. There was a guy called Eric Ward, who was really big in publicity.
Right.
I found him online to do publicity.
Yeah.
He probably told me about Danny. And there was another guy, Nick Usborne, who was a copywriter. And he
I know.
did-
I've interviewed Nick. Yeah.
Nick, yeah.
Yeah.
So ask
Yeah.
Nick about us. So he's written about me,
Yeah.
and he's a great guy. I think he's in Canada.
Yeah. I think
Not
you're right.
sure. But that was back in the really
great
early
copywriter,
days.
yeah.
So it was Nick, Danny, and Eric were my 3 mentors of online, and there wasn't really much of anybody else at the time.
Yeah. So radio and TV. What did you do? Because radio worked for you too, right?
We're still doing a lot of radio. We've been doing radio for about 6-7 years.
Okay.
And that's it's hard to measure, but we're able to measure it, and so many people now over consistent many years say, oh yeah, we heard this guy talk about you and that guy. It's mostly radio host endorsed, but we do a lot of others.
Yeah.
I get people for the bonus spots, I do those reads. So
You do?
people say, hey, I heard you on the radio. I got a guy just yesterday write me and say, I heard you on the Howard Stern show.
Oh, really? Because you were one of the commercials?
Yeah.
That's great.
That is funny. The first time I knew we were on Howard Stern was when my son said his friends were telling him that they kept hearing me on Howard Stern, and I didn't even know.
That's great. So that
Yeah.
works. And TV, does that work at all?
TV works pretty well. We were always experimenting with that. Pay-per-click advertising, AdWords, Bing, things like that. We do a lot of that. But over 60% of our business comes from happy customers, repeat and referred
Right,
customers.
right.
And if we were to have to buy traffic, then we would not make money.
Right.
You can't buy traffic and be in business. You have to do a good job and to stay in business.
Yeah.
And in order to make money.
Yeah. So when does Home Depot enter the picture? Because
They acquired us in 2014,
Right.
so it'll be 3 years this January.
did you have some kind of, because I read in an interview somewhere, this is before you got acquired, and it says, we just created a partnership with some big public companies. It launched 2 weeks ago. I can't really talk about it. This was maybe, I'm thinking it was 3 years prior to Home Depot.
Well, we
acquired
eventually
you.
probably talked about it. We were selling.
No, I mean at
blinds
the time
for-
you couldn't
for
talk about
Sears.
it. Yeah.
We had done a powered by a white label cart-to-cart integration for Sears,
Okay.
helping them sell blinds.
Right.
We also sold blinds for Wayfair, which right now is huge. That was in the beginning, and those were great proofs of concept for us.
Right.
Because when Home Depot and some other big stores came to us and started looking at us,
Right.
the fact that we were proven to be able to support
Yeah.
public company,
Yeah.
Sears, and an emerging public company,
Yeah. That was
Wayfair,
huge.
who was known for their IT,
Right.
that gave us a lot of credibility. That was the way we were intending to grow, by using that model for being that center engine for other big retailers.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why Home Depot came to us and said, you know what? We don't want you doing that for them. We want you doing that for us.
Right.
And the company was making a lot of money. It was growing at very high rates of growth. And we thought it was being run pretty well. It's being run better now as being part of Home Depot.
Yeah.
We know a lot more about ourselves than we did then, but we were highly successful and growing very rapidly, and it was real fun. But we weren't at the time looking to sell.
Yeah. They came to you.
They came to us.
Okay.
Yeah. We had no book, anything. When they came, they said, "Are you interested in talking?" We said, "Sure, we'll talk to you."
So they made an offer you couldn't refuse.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Actually, I did refuse the first offer.
You did? Okay, that's smart.
We eventually were able to work out something that was not only financially acceptable, but because it's Home Depot and because our mission was always to take our platform and to sell not just blinds, but other products
Right.
that were very difficult to buy
Yeah.
and transform those transactions into experiences that were surprisingly easy. We were going to then have to acquire a company in order to do that with some other category.
Yeah.
Now we're taking that platform and working with Home Depot and leveraging it across the enterprise, which is very fun for me because now I'm an entrepreneur and a corporate executive
Right.
side by side. One is a little more fun than the other, but
We'll take our guess which one is that. Yeah.
but it's still intriguing and quite rewarding to be working with super smart people who are dominating, and to be able to do something and leverage something far beyond anything that I and even my team could have done on our own.
Yeah.
We liken it to Iron Man, where we consider ourselves Tony Stark
Right. Right.
and Jarvis is Home Depot
Yeah.
in the suit.
Jay, this is awesome. Thank you so much. So how long does that take once they decide to make an offer to actually closing, like with paperwork and negotiation? How long does it take for when you enter in discussion to them actually finalizing everything?
It happened within the whole thing, from the initial paperwork to the fully negotiated purchase agreement with everything signed. It happened in about 4 or 5 months,
Wow,
including
that's quick.
including all the due diligence.
That seems quick.
It was very quick. They were determined, and we had a very clean operation.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a whole lot.
I guess your background's in accounting, right? So like, so
Well, I had good people,
yeah, yeah,
and things were organized, and we were doing well. There was no skeletons.
yeah.
So it was a pretty clean. They had, I think, over 100 people in our data room looking around, asking a lot of nosy questions, but good questions that they needed to ask.
Right, right.
But we had good answers. So they were determined to do it. They wanted to get it done,
Yeah,
and we wanted to. And there were instances where there were some tricky things along the way. But when you have two parties both intent on getting something done,
right.
it seems like you can almost always work out a solution that's good for everybody.
Yeah,
We were always able to do it. And with the people who we were working with, a guy by the name of George, he and I had a really good relationship, and we were able to work through almost everything. The attorneys had good, solid intent,
yeah,
and all the negotiations were done to make the deal work so everybody would be happy.
yeah.
And nothing has changed in the way I've worked
You run
with
things.
them in the past and how I'm working with them now. I'm still feeling the really good intentions. It just takes longer for things to happen than it did
Right.
back in the past, but ultimately it seems like it's working out. It's been 3 years.
Yeah. What should people think about or look out for when being acquired or making an acquisition? Since you've been through this, and you've made acquisitions too, obviously.
We've made 4 acquisitions. I think the question of culture and control
Yeah.
are the big things that people worry about.
Yeah.
And in our case, it was not a roll-up. It was not buying us to meld us into this
Like
organization.
my wrong term of mushing it together. Yes.
Yes.
It wasn't mushing
Yes,
it together.
It wasn't a mush.
Yes.
It wasn't a meld of
Right.
things to drive cost out.
I got you.
Certainly, you're always looking to drive cost out.
Yeah.
But it was to take our culture, our capabilities, the technology that we had built on our own. That technology was really the first reason they came to us.
Really?
Because we had built this web commerce platform in-house that was product agnostic. It was not only just killing it in blinds, but it could apply. We built it specifically to not be hard-coded for blinds.
Yeah.
And then they saw the culture, they saw the contact center. And so for us, it was, are they really wanting to do all these other things? And then it's about how much cash do you get versus stock. And I guess if you get enough cash, the other stuff doesn't matter.
Right. Right.
And I'm not saying I got enough cash, and I'm not saying anything about my own personal situation.
Right.
But I would, if you're selling your business, the amount of cash you get is very important.
Yeah, for sure.
And the control that you have, and whether, if you're going to be, if it is a mush kind of deal,
Right.
then you know that whatever culture you have, it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
Because it can't work.
Right.
The acquirer's culture is what must prevail. And you have to blend into it. And if you think that's not going to happen, then you're being naive.
Right.
And that's why most entrepreneurs that sell their company don't last more than 3 months,
Right.
sometimes a week,
Yeah.
and certainly no longer than a year.
Yeah.
It's very rare. I've been told a handful of people will be there 3 years.
Right.
And I'm still feeling a
You're
lot of
feeling- you're
energy,
good.
a lot of opportunity.
So Global Custom Commerce is the platform, right? How many
That's the
developers?
name of the company.
Oh, that's the name of the
Our
company.
company name is Global Custom Commerce.
I gotcha.
We just happen to have as a website, blinds.com.
Gotcha.
We say blinds.com because it's easier to say. You don't have to go through the whole
I'd say it because there's a technology behind what you're running. How many developers do you need on staff to construct?
We have 65 people in our IT department.
Okay.
They're
Yeah.
not all engineers.
Yeah.
They're not all developers.
Yeah.
QA,
Yeah.
BAs. We've got network people. We've got help desk.
Yeah. So we talked before we started, before we record, about people ask you why you stay on for so long as the CEO.
Well, to kind of bring it all together now,
Yeah.
if my core values truly are to experiment without fear, to improve continuously,
Yeah.
to speak up, and to have fun, then I have just gone to the biggest arena for that I could possibly imagine.
Right.
I'm not going to start my own company when I have the opportunity to impact a $100 billion company,
Right.
and to do it in a way that's particularly hard. And if I'm already financially secure, I don't have to worry as much about the politics. I don't have to worry about if somebody is upset with me and I don't have the job, that's fine. So what that enables me to do is to truly speak up
Yeah.
with deference and respect,
Yeah.
but only say those things that I truly believe are in the best interest of the enterprise.
Right.
And when they know I'm coming from that, I get to experiment, I get to try new things and do things that really in retail have not been done before.
Yeah.
And because they're particularly hard and very challenging, it's fun. And we're all trying to do things that have not been done before.
Yeah.
So this is a perfect place to do it.
Yeah. What's the skill set you've had to develop as a CEO that's different from the entrepreneur side of things?
That's interesting. When you're an entrepreneur, you're basically a product expert on how to sell and service that product.
Yeah.
Now you have to learn how to create a business. It's like you can be a really great cook, but not necessarily run a restaurant.
Right.
So I've had to learn how to run a restaurant,
Yeah.
not cook.
Yeah.
So that means how to hire, how to develop organizations, how to train, how
Yeah.
to establish an environment, culture,
Yeah.
establish a vision, how to communicate the vision, how to execute on it, capacity analysis, all the things that you've got to do to actually run
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of dollars of a business.
Right. Right.
And my job now has changed this year versus what it was last year. and I will believe and that job will continue to change, because now a lot of my job is an ambassador job, where I have to make sure that the vision that we see is communicated broadly and clearly among 8,000 people that are just in the headquarters of Home Depot. There's another almost 400,000 associates in the stores.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what I'm doing.
Now I see the theme. Like I read, I encourage anyone to check out the articles. You wrote a lot of articles on Inc., and a lot of them have a theme of hiring. I think one was on why hiring's like making trail mix or something like that. Yeah. Right. Yes.
Exactly. Everything that I think about is about creating the right system, the right process, the right environment, and then hiring the right people that fit within the type of environment that you want, and being very clear about the direction that you want to go in, and making sure everybody knows what their role is and what that long-term role is, and how their short-term job today is tied to that.
Yeah.
And as we've gotten bigger, it's been much harder for me to do it, and I've actually not done a good job at that over the last year, because we have now 350 people, and it's just impossible to be able to do what I used to do. And I just hired a chief people officer a few months ago, and he's going to shore up a lot of the deficiencies that I've got in time, and he's got the expertise, and he's trained in organizational design and communication. He's fantastic, and we're a better company because now he's shoring up my weakness of not being able to do it.
Yeah. Jay, two last questions, and this is, thank you again. This has been truly amazing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I always ask, since it's Inspired Insider, what's been the lowest business moment and how you push through it? And then on the flip side, what's been the proudest for you?
Well, the lowest is already self-evident. When my wife passed away, that's self-evident.
Yeah.
That was really bad.
That's the lowest of the low. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get much lower than that. I don't even want to think about things that could be worse than that.
Right.
So that was by far the worst. I was able to get through it. I'm got that paradox of feeling blessed and sad simultaneously, and I'm still sad every day.
Yeah.
But I'm also blessed and feel very optimistic and grateful for where I am today. So that took a lot of work and thinking and introspection and support from family, friends, and my associates here.
Yeah.
As far as the high point, it seems like every day is another high point.
Yeah.
Because as you're incrementally improving, and I really think it's more about evolving. Evolving seems to happen almost every second. Like a tree doesn't just sometimes grow and doesn't grow.
Right.
Every second, the cells are hopefully getting a little bit bigger and growing. And that's how I feel about myself.
Yeah.
And as I feel like we get more and more capabilities and more people who are doing things that I don't do, and I don't even know what the hell they're doing sometimes. I'll be walking by a meeting room and see people, and I don't even know who some of the people are. I think, that is so cool. I don't even know who they are, but I know they're smart. I know they're doing a good job. I know they're organized, and I know they're probably going to get this done on time, whatever it is.
Right.
And I think that's a blessing, to feel like what I was doing when I was working 7 days a week. I'm doing everything myself.
Right.
And now there's people who I don't even know their name. And in some cases, sometimes I see somebody I didn't even know that they worked for us, and they're doing a great job. That's pretty cool.
Some of them probably don't even know who you are. Is that possible?
Maybe. We do an all-hands meeting every Thursday, and I'm actually at the
Maybe
front.
not.
So if they don't know, they're really not paying attention.
They're like, who's this guy? Like, oh, he's the boss.
It is funny when people just start, but there's enough pictures of me going around.
Okay.
Figure they know who I am.
Okay.
Selling the company was obviously...
Yeah, so how do you celebrate? How do you celebrate after Home Depot, it's official?
How did we celebrate?
Yeah.
We had a 30-year-old bottle of Macallan.
Okay.
That was a little l'chaim for that.
Right.
And then we just got to work and said, all right, we've done that. Now let's keep going. And now we've got an opportunity to propel ourselves and do something really of significance.
Yeah.
So just kept doing what we were doing.
Yeah. Jay, fantastic. We didn't get to talk about the barbershop quartet, which is amazing. Maybe there's some videos I can clip in on that. Other videos online about that? Okay. And also, I just want to note, you also give back a lot. And I see, stuff with prison entrepreneurship programs and helping vet days through the building opportunities that you guys provide too. So there's just...
And the one great thing that we're doing, which is not quite as benevolent as what you're talking about, but I'm part of X Prize.
X Prize, yeah.
Yeah, and X Prize is really cool because you've got all these amazing entrepreneurs that are just trying to change civilization and do things that through incented prizes that could never have been done before. Yeah. And being part of that and using money for that purpose with virtual reality, augmented reality, and science and all the things, all the exponential technology that is here and now and will be completely changing the world. That's another way to continue to stay improving, experimenting, and having fun.
Yeah. Jay, thank you again. Everyone should check out blinds.com. Anywhere else we should point people towards, maybe Inc. to check out your articles? Anywhere else online?
Inc.com, blinds.com, either of those, that would be fine. Check out X Prize. That's
X Prize.
Really
.org. Great. Jay?
It's been my pleasure. Thank you. I'm honored that you felt that I would somehow help your show, and thank you very much for that opportunity.
Yeah.
Really.
Jay, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
No-Brainer Blinds and Shades. Installation of wood and aluminum blinds. You'll receive clear instructions and all necessary hardware. Attach the brackets. Put the valance clip on the head rail. Slip the blind into the brackets. Snap on the valance. It's a no-brainer. No-Brainer Blinds and Shades. Installation of cellular shades. You'll receive clear instructions and all necessary hardware. Attach the brackets. Fasten the shade to the brackets. It's a no-brainer.